flying for 35 years now, and climbing since I was 16, whatever that works out to be, 40 or so. And I also put on a quest. I decided to, when there's a guy called Dick Bass, a rich oil tycoon, who came up with the idea to do the 7 summits. And that's to climb the highest mountain on each continent. This was back in I think he did it in the 1990s, early 1990s, somewhere around there. Anyway, and he got this idea going, and lots of people around the world and lots of mountaineers now try and aspire to do the 7 summits and the 14,000 meter, 8,000 meter peaks. And so they are, as you can see there, and I've now tried to fly off all of them. And I've done 6 so far, and I've just got 1 left. So you have Denali in North America, and Aconcagua in South America, Kelly in our backyard. You have Elbrus, which is on the Ural Mountains. You have Everest, which I've just done in Asia. Then you have Carsten's Pyramid and Kosciuszko. There's a bit of a dispute over that as to which one falls in which continent. So I went and did both, just to put that to bed. And my last one now is Mount Vincent down in Antarctica, which I have to do whenever I get the money to go and do it, because it's more expensive than Everest, and Everest isn't cheap. Now, I'm going to teach you something here. I've written there 7 summits plus 1, because New Zealand was declared a continent in 2017. So there are actually 88 continents, not 7. And you've got Mount Cook there, and luckily I've got family that lives there. So I've gone there 3 times to try and climb it and fly off it, but the weather's never been right. So on to Everest. So before you do Everest, all my running had put paid to my knees. I had to have a double knee replacement. So I thought I'm never going to get up and down Everest with knees like they are. This was sort of 2 years ago now, 2.5 years. So I went and had my knees done a year before going to go and do Everest. So I'm going to take you through Everest, which I did April, May last year. And on this trip, I joined. Everest can be climbed in various ways. You can do it by yourself and put everything together yourself, which is an absolute nightmare. And I looked at doing that, and I worked out I'd probably save myself 50,000 rand. So I said, no, it's not worth the effort. And I might not get the permits to fly off it, which is more of the main thing. And so I looked around and spoke to some other paragliding pilots who had tried to fly off Everest before as well. And they said go with Asian Trekking, because the guy there, our Stephen Sherpa, who owns the company, is very well connected, and if he's going to get you a permit to fly off, he's the man who'll probably he's got the right connections, and he'll be able to do it. So I signed up with them, and it's what they call a international expedition, where they get various people from around the world just come and join it. It's sort of the cheaper form of doing it. And there's just a bunch of you make new friends, and hopefully you get along with them, because you're going to spend 2 months in the mountain with them, then off you all go. So the trips vary so his was just over 500,000, so that's cheap. And then they go up to, really wealthy people who can afford to pay like $1 million. But then they get pretty much everything done for them. So yeah, you have these various range of trips that go. So I just opted for the cheapest one, and someone who could get me a permit. Now luckily Dawa had started paragliding himself, so he was quite keen to get this permit, and he pushed hard for me, and in the end it worked out. So from Kathmandu, once you've done your shopping and you've gone through your stomach bugs, you then fly to a little place called Lukla. Now, some of you might know Lukla. It's got a little airstrip, and it used to be I think it was like one of the most dangerous landing strips in the world at one point, if the mountain accident was happening. So Lukla, you can only fly into Lukla. The closest road stops, I think it's about 12 k's away, and then you have to walk to Lukla. So the only way to get food in and out, anything that you want, it's all flown in, or it's brought in on yaks and porters. Then from Lukla, you then have a 10-day walk up this valley. That's my GPS track all the way to Everest Base Camp. And you walk for 10 days because you have to acclimatize. You've got various, you stop at all these little tea houses on the way, very beautiful, very picturesque. If any of you are into your hiking, I mean, Nepal is made for hiking. It really is a beautiful little country. And they obviously take you up slowly because you have to acclimatize. And you stop in two main towns, Namche Bazaar, which is just above the height of the Drakensberg at 3,500 meters. And then Dingboche, where they stopped us at the next acclimatization place, where you stop for 2 days to get your body to acclimatize a bit more, and then carry on to base camp. The only way, as I said, is to either they put your stuff on a helicopter or take it up, or they put it on a yak or a porter. So I'm going to educate you again. A yak is a male yak, and a knack is a female yak. So I never knew that. It was quite an interesting little thing. So I'm going to skip through these little photos here of the walks in. It's very pleasant walking. You've got tea houses sort of every 5Ks. You walk maybe 10Ks a day to your next place where you're going to stay. And you normally get there before lunch, and then you just chill for the rest of the day, allowing your body to acclimatize. So their religion is Hindus. Hindu is their main religion in the country, and you've got all these rocks with all the writings on it, etc. And we're told by our guides to always go left of the rock, and if you're coming the other way, you go left around it. So this is easy, but some of them were a lot harder to go if you're coming back. So on the days where it was easy to go left, we were religious. On the days where it was too hard to go left, we went right. Also, these big suspension bridges. I was looking forward to, I'd heard all these stories about the suspension bridges, and they are quite amazing. There's a hell of a lot of them to transport between all the villages. Obviously, it helps them a lot. And even the yaks and the yaks go across there. It's amazing. I'm amazed my horse would never go across that thing. And you're roughly doing about 500 meters in altitude every day from your tea house to tea house where you're sleeping. Those who had never been to altitude, they took Dimox and various other pills. But, yeah, I just think the idea is with altitude, you try and get a diuretic going so that you pee a lot to get rid of the water, so you don't get. It does help you acclimatize, but your body does that naturally anyway. So I drink copious amounts of tea, and it gets me a natural diuretic going.
Always like that.
We only saw Everest on our 8th day in. It was clouded the whole time. We didn't see any mountains. It was warm enough. It wasn't chilly. At the moment, we only at sort of 3,500 meters. So. But the most people that climb Everest are the Americans and the guys from the UK. I guess they've got the money. They can afford it. Anyway, but no paragliding permit had been given to us yet either. And there was myself and an Australian that wanted to try and paraglide off Everest.
And it been done before?
Yeah, it has been flown off 3 times. I was the 4th. But the first 3 times, what made my fly off important was that I was the first person to ever actually to get permission to fly off. The others had done it, and some had got fined, some got a slap on the wrist. So yeah, but I wanted to do it legally, just to set a precedent so that other people in the future can go and fly off and fly other 8,000 meter peaks in Nepal, which now has, since that has been done and we sort of showed the authorities we could do it safely, and they are now allowing other people to fly off 8,000 meter peaks. So it's fantastic that it's opened that up.
Were you going to fly anyway when you got the permits or not?
No, the operator, so Asian Trekking in this case, they would have been fined. So they're getting quite strict about it. So we decided, no, let's just play it by the book, and if it is successful, it'll open the doors, which it has. So, yeah, and the fine, I was told the fine would be more than the permit I paid to fly off. So the fine would have been something like $10,000, and then I would have got deported. So, yeah, and my permit to fly off was only $5,000. So it was, yeah. But that permit I'll show you now only came at the very, very last minute. So on the way up the tea houses, you go past monasteries, and I guess it's a way of them getting income. And they tell you you have to go and get blessed because you're climbing Everest. So you go in and you sit around and you get blessed by the head, the monk, and you put your money down as well. That's the most important part. And that happened in any big monastery we were in past. We had to go in and get blessed. I guess it's just their way of raising money. Now, said everything gets carried in by yak or by helicopter or by porter. So these guys are unbelievably strong. So these bags are roughly 20 kilos each. So I mean, I tried to pick up one, and I thought, no, I'm just going to put my back out. And they walk a lot faster than you as well. But beautiful, there's the path in the background. Just big, deep valleys. Now, Everest you can only climb, they have it this time of the year, there's 2 times of the year when the jet stream lifts. So it sticks, the top of it sticks into the jet stream, which is a good 100 plus kr wind. And that either moves up or off to the left only in May. And there's a couple of days or a couple of weeks during that period that it actually moves off left or right or up. And so everyone then obviously goes to climb it then. And lucky with us, the amount of people that eventually ended up climbing, I think that year or last year were just over 400 people summited. And you must have heard about all these bottlenecks you get when you climb Everest and crowds of people. And luckily, for whatever reason, the jet stream went off for a good 2 to 3 weeks. So there were all sorts of records set around the Himalayas because the winds had totally died off. And you get the bottlenecks because these windows of opportunity, sometimes the Met comes in and says, okay, you've only got 3 days to go and climb this mountain. And so that's why you get the crowds rushing up to go and try and climb it. And you get these long queues. But when you have 2 to 3 weeks to climb it, everyone is spread out. And I didn't have any crowds. That's on Everest, not the walk-in. You got everyone else with you, so it's quite busy on the walk-in actually. You got normal, just walkers and hikers, and that's base camp. Someone went and spray painted a thing, base camp and altitude. I don't know what idiot would do that, but general hikers, they don't allow general hikers to go past this rock. I think that's maybe why they did it, to go into base camp itself. But if you YouTube it, it's a famous photograph of this rock. Everyone takes their photos on the rock. And this is what our base camp looked like. It's a very nice little setup. You each get a tent, and you got a nice bed in the tent, and that's our mess tent, or these little igloos which are insulated. You have the kitchen, and the porters and that have their own tents, so top there. So that's what it's like inside, and this is where you're going to spend most of your time. Because on our camp, because we on the lower end of the scale, the upper end of the scale, all their personal tents are insulated and very comfortable. I think they get tennis ball, ping pong tables and snooker tables, but that's if you're paying the sort of $1 million for your trip, and TVs. So this is where we ate and socialized. And they got a little heater there that kept you warm because it went down to -20 at night. Yeah, it was very nice and sociable. 5,300 and something.
18,000.
Yeah, roughly 18,000 feet, yeah. And then from there you have to acclimatize, so you go off and climb. You're there for 7 weeks now. And from there you go off and climb other mountains. So we went and did a couple of 6,000 meter mountains before we actually went up the ice wall, so that you're acclimatized before going through the dangerous part of the ice wall, so that you can do it obviously as quick as you can, so you minimize your exposure. So this is climbing one of the other 6,000 meters peaks. I think I can't remember the name of it. The Gorakshep East, I think it was. Beautiful little mountain. I still haven't got my paragliding permit. It would have been fantastic to fly off it. Now, before you do anything on this mountain, you have to get blessed for the last time. So they have what they call a puja ceremony. And you put all your climbing gear there, and you make donations of beer and Coke and whatever you want to the gods. And they go through this for a good 45 minutes or so, and then you all celebrate, and the whiskey gets passed around, and you throw rice in the air, or to Sagamantha, the god of Everest, or the mother god of the earth, I think it is. So that's quite a celebration, and then we can start going up the ice fall. But every morning at 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning when you get up, you still have to go past that shrine and have a little prayer for about 10 minutes in -20, and you always want that to get over quickly, and then off you go. You can start warming up, and this is my track log through the ice fall. And to do Everest, you've got Camp 1, Camp 2, there's Camp 3 on the Lhotse face, I'll show you now, and then up to the South Col. You can also, there's lots of routes up Everest. There's the Northeast Ridge, which I actually wanted to do because it's about 100,000 rand cheaper, but the Chinese didn't open that side of the mountain, so we couldn't do it, and that's up that ridge there. So I went the way that Tenzing Norgay and Hillary climbed the mountain. If any of you guys have read those books, and that's up the ice fall into the Western Coombe, up the Lhotse face, and onto the South Col. Now, when you're acclimatizing, they take you up, so you do one run through up to roughly 7,000, I think we went up to 7,500 meters, up to Camp 3 or just a bit higher, and then back down, and then you wait for the weather to change, to get better than it was, and the winds, the high winds to leave the mountain. And you need to have the ropes. They're fixed ropes. So it's actually the highest via ferrata in the world, if you know what via ferrata is. They're all over the Alps, where via ferrata means the Iron Way. It was a World War II thing to get people away from the Germans over the Alps. And via ferrata is where they put iron pegs and ropes all the way up and over mountains to make it easy passage. And so in Everest you have guys called the icefall doctors and the rope fixers, and a company tenders for this, and each year whichever company they decide to choose then puts ropes all the way through the icefall. You'll see the ropes in the photograph showing now. When it gets easier again, the ropes disappear, and then the ropes appear again. That's all the way to the top. There's a fixed rope that you can actually clip into, just so that you don't need to rope up all the way, and it just saves time. You know, roping up to your mate who's you're crossing crevasse territory and going through ice falls in case you fall in, you don't want to disappear. You sit around, once you've climatized to your highest point, we acclimatized to around about 7,400 meters. You then go down and you sit and you wait for the weather to clear. So we had a week and a half of waiting, and we waited for the ropes to get fixed. They were fixed on about the 8th of May to the top of Everest. The next good weather window was coming up on the 15th, I think it was, of May. And so you've got a couple of days to get up into position. So everybody obviously starts going up the mountain and getting into position, but we were told that, as I said earlier, there's going to be a weather window of roughly 2 weeks where the wind will be nice, and my permit still hadn't arrived to fly off. So I said, oh, well, what the hell? I'm going to take the glider up, because maybe they give a permit on the way up. The day I left into the icefall, I got a radio call from Doug Stevens saying my permit had been approved and I was allowed to fly off. So luckily I packed the glider anyway. It's a small little glider. It only weighs 2 kilos. It wasn't much extra to carry. A good jungle gym of ice. And you must have heard about these ladders. So the icefall doctors fix these ladders. And the glacier's moving. You know, every day, every 24 hours it moves a couple of 100 millimeters. So every morning the icefall doctors go through the icefall to just check the ladders so that they haven't moved or slipped off or fallen down, and re-establish it for you. And that's obviously part of the fee you're paid. It just makes things easier and quicker. So you can imagine Hillary and those guys in the early days, they would have had to abseil down here, climb up the other side, put a rope across, and then, so it took them months. So it's a maze that the icefall doctors find a way through, and every year is slightly different, because it moves. You can pay for a Sherpa to carry your kit up for you, and you just take like a day pack if you want. Just depends how you want to do it. But I think if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. So I pretty much carried everything. The only thing that they supplied for us were tents up the mountain. They had a cook at Camp 2 that did dinner, cooked supper and lunches for us when we got there. And then above the mountain, you get given I'd call him your high altitude Sherpa. He's more like a shadow, so he just, in my case, he carried extra oxygen for me and the stove, and that was it. And then when you get to a tent, you sort of together, you buddy up with him, and you then cook your own meals from there on out. So this takes a bit of getting used to. But we're going, by the end of it, you're skipping across these ladders quite quickly, actually.
Yes. Bearing in mind, Pierre, the ladder's not designed to work like that.
Oh, they do. They even lash them together. So sometimes you've got 3 of them lashed together.
That's
How deep is it?
So that's not the bottom. That's just because it's going black. You can't see the bottom of it. Yeah, a couple of 100 meters, whatever. I don't know. I actually never asked. I think the ice was here, but it's definitely a couple of 100 meters there.
How stable are those ropes then? Yeah, I mean, can you still topple sideways, or is it quite a solid structure?
No, so so this guy in front of me, I held the ropes tight for him.
Oh,
he went across, and then you can see he's pulling them tight for me, just to give a bit of stability. But if you were to fall off, you're going to drop down a good 10 meters or so until it grabs you. So it's a jungle gym of ice. You're coming across all these broken. So they had different names for different areas. I think this is called Popcorn Alley. It was like little sort of soccer balls of ice, and yeah.
And what sort of outside air temperature is it here?
Obviously in the morning it was minus 20 or minus 25, somewhere around there. But as it warms up, and as you get into Western Coombe, it actually gets so hot because you're in this valley and you've got ice all around you. So it's like you're just getting cooked if the sun's shining. So you generally try and get through there early in the morning, otherwise you end up taking all your clothes off and trying to walk in shorts. That's how hot it gets up there.
Sunburn?
Sunburn, yeah, you put everywhere. Up your nostrils, because you get reflective light from every direction.
Just give us an idea, it's hard on the scale, how many kilometers you are from base camp to...
It's very small. From there's base camp to Camp 1 is probably 2 Ks, maybe 3 Ks, and 500 meters in height, roughly. But that takes you 6 hours. Obviously, that was the first time I did it. The second time I did it, I think I did it about 3 hours. But when we went for our trip up, they divided our team. There were 14 climbers, and they divided us up into 2 groups of 7. And they just did that in terms of speed. Some people just walk faster than others. So I was in the first group. We were sort of the faster hikers. And I got very sick at Camp 1. I picked up a bug or something, and I was vomiting and not very pleasant. And it took me, I'd done this little piece in about an hour, 20 minutes the first time I did it, and it took me 5 hours. And I was sick just to crawl along that. And then I got caught in the sun and the heat, and it was horrible. And phoned the team doctor, so the ground operator, Asian Trekking had a team doctor as well, and he was actually a guy from America, a very nice chap. His name was Christian, and he said, no, just hang in there, he's coming up. And he walked up and came and gave me an injection of something and some pills which made me stop vomiting, and I could actually hold on to some food. And then I waited for the next team, the second team, to come through a couple of days later, and then I joined them and carried on up the mountain. And I just said to myself, I'll just take it one camp at a time, and if I make it to Camp 3, fantastic. If I make the summit, fantastic, and then maybe I can go for the top.
What's your maximum height that you can get air support in?
At Camp 2. So I nearly called, I was feeling so bad, I thought, okay, I'm going to get Discovery to pay for this trip out of here. And, but luckily the American doctor, Christian, persuaded me, no, just hang in there, he's coming to give me some muti. So yeah, it all worked.
Where's the death zone? Is that at Camp 3 and above?
The death zone started on the yellow line on the border. So at the South Col at 8,000 meters is the death zone. So that's Camp 1. And at this stage, your ablutions are just down a crevasse. They generally put a tent over a crevasse. with some poles or some rocks, and you just
You mean that's the definition of a long drop?
yeah, that's your long drop, and hence don't the water there purify and boil the hell out of it, especially at base camp, because all of this is coming out there with all the bodies that have also accumulated over the years. I was quite surprised, actually, in general, you hear about all the rubbish on Everest and base camp and all the way up the mountain. It was actually quite clean. You know, there's obviously broken tents lying around, but there's not. I thought there'd be a lot more rubbish, and there wasn't, which was very pleasant to see.
Are you sleeping on a bed or on a mattress up there, Camp 2?
You're on one of those inflatable mattresses. Anyway, so this is where I spent sort of 4 days trying to recover, or 5 days, until the next team came through. That's the Lhotse face, which is also another sort of dangerous part. And dangerous from other climbers. When I was climbing up there, I had an oxygen bottle come past me, about 10 meters to my right, whistling down that face. So you can imagine, you're told just to be very, very careful when you're up there. You drop things, it's going to go down the mountain and hit somebody.
And I noticed just caps, no mountaineers.
No, when you go up the Lhotse face, you put on your mountaineering helmet to stop those sort of accidents from happening, and in case you fall in a crevasse, you're going to smack your head. And I was obviously following the weather, and every morning the clouds would come in like this. Roughly, it would be clear in the early morning, and then by 10 o'clock it would be clouded in, and then start snowing at about 1. So from Camp 2, you then go up across and up the Lhotse face. I've got a better photograph of it. There it is. You can see those little specks of people. And Camp 3 is roughly in that little patch there. And this is hard ice. Your point of your crampons just go into it. But with all the people going up and down it, there's eventually some little steps that start forming, which make it a little bit easier. You can actually see the path there. And obviously you kit up, so you've got special high altitude boots, and you wear a full down suit, which can get very hot at parts. Mine was actually split, which made it a lot easier, so I could take off the top, where some people have a full suit all the way. Here's the fixed rope going up. There's one for going up and one for coming down.
Can you put on a rope to support you up, or is it just...
Yeah, so you clip on, so on the steeper part you have what they call a jumar, so it's a little device that slides one way and doesn't slide the other. So you use it, so you don't actually use your ice axe at all. You carry an ice axe just in case you fall down a crevasse or something, but otherwise you're putting on these ropes. And this is where, if there are lots of people, you can imagine trying to pass people in that situation. You have to actually unclip from the rope, go around them and clip on again. So, but luckily we didn't have big crowds. That's on top of the Geneva Spur looking down. And I nearly took off now. I discussed the weather with our Stephen Sherpa, who gets the weather from 2 weather sources from guys in Europe and America. And he said that the next day, your summit day, the weather's changing, and the weather's going to be horrible from 1 o'clock onwards. So I decided, this is going to be tricky. I'm going to have to decide now whether to fly or whether to go for the summit. Because once you get to the South Col, you've got if you're fit, you've got about a 13 hours up and down, or you've got a 18 to 20 hours up and down from the South Col. And I wasn't very fit because I'd been sick, so I said, okay, it's probably going to take me 16 hours up and down. And if I leave at 9 at night, I'll only get down sort of around about 2, 3 in the afternoon the next day. And if the weather guys are right, I won't be able to fly because the weather's going to be clagged in and snowing, they said. I had to decide whether to go for the summit or fly. My permit wouldn't allow me to fly from the summit. They'd only granted me, said I could only fly from 8,000 meters, no higher. They wouldn't give me a reason why, they just said that's it. So I could only fly basically from the South Col, which is on 8,000 meters or just under by a couple of meters. And while I was walking up here, I came across the Geneva Spur, which is also pretty much level with the South Col. It's actually a bit higher. You go up and over and down into the South Col. The weather was actually quite nice. I was sitting here contemplating whether I should take off now. There's a nice 20k breeze coming up here. And while I was thinking that, within half an hour, it was then clagged in and I couldn't take off anyway. So that put that decision to bed. So that is the last bit of Everest, the last pyramid. And Molly, the lady here, has climbed that part. I haven't, because I elected to fly. And it's roughly 800 meters from the South Col up to the summit. That's not the truth, that's the South Summit. The proper summit's just on the other side of that. From what I could see following my teammates, you go up to this sort of black pyramid there, go across onto the spur, up to the balcony, and up the ridge, and then you're on to where the Hillary Traverse is, which unfortunately I never got to experience. And if any of you want to give me some money, 500,000, I'll go and do it again. So, and this is where all those accidents, you've read John, I don't know if you've read John Krakauer's book, and
Yeah. Thin air.
Into Thin Air, yeah, that's it. And how the guys get lost trying to find that tent, and how they're just trying to find this. It's a very broad, open sort of couple of football fields big. So if you come down off Everest and you're tired, you can easily see why people get lost, because the rope doesn't come all the way back to the tent. It sort of stops a couple hundred meters away. So when I took off from there, that's the path I followed. There are a lot of helicopters flying around at base camp, so I chatted to them and we chatted to the tower, and we said, look, you guys are never going to come up to my altitude anyway, so I'll be above you, but I'm going to try and stick more to the right-hand side of the valley, and you stick to the left, and I'll radio down and tell you when I'm taking off. So that was our plan, just so we didn't collide, and that I'll be landing at Gorakshep. Because literally there are probably, every half an hour there's a helicopter, maybe 2 or 3 coming in to drop supplies to base camp. So you think it's peaceful, it's not that peaceful with helicopters buzzing around. So the weather to take off in the morning, so I then elected, like, I'm not going to go with my teammates. They all left at sort of 9 in the evening, the previous evening. So I had a bit of FOMO there, not going to the top with them. But I trusted the weather guys, that they said the weather would be changing from 1 o'clock onwards. We then woke up at 6, hoping that the weather would be good. But it was totally clagged in, as I thought it would be, because I had done that all the previous mornings. So I couldn't take off. The wind was fine, everything was fine. It's a nice sort of 20 km/h wind, which is perfect for a paraglider. And but landing, it was just a sea of clouds right the way through to Lukla. I then waited, and 10 o'clock came, and the clouds started lifting and coming up, and they were getting patchy with holes that you could then fly down through, see where you're going. So that was all working out nicely, but now the wind had picked up to about 50, 60 km/h. So that was too strong. So we went back, and Chedding and I had more tea, waited for the clouds to come up, and I knew when the clouds started rising up, the wind would probably die, and generally the thermals kind of keep the wind at bay. And around about 12 o'clock, the wind, the tents stopped flapping around as much as it did. Went and had a look, and the wind had dropped to about 35, 40 km/h. That was just my feel. I didn't have a wind meter, that's what I thought it was. And I thought, okay, I can probably get the paraglider off in this. And we hauled it out, and I asked Chedding to come and hold it, and he got another 2 Sherpas just to hold it, because 35, 40 km/h, the wind on a piece of fabric, it's blowing around a lot, so it's quite hard to keep it on the ground. And I was thinking, shit, I'm going to get pulled off, if I was in Joburg and this 40 km/h wind, that's a hell of a strong, I'm just going to get popped up. And I was hoping, maybe it'll even push me to the top of Everest. That's a dream. But I pulled it up, and the glider did absolutely, it just sat there, and I thought, hell, I now have to actually run. So I think I hold the record for the longest run on top of South Col. I had to sort of run hard for 30 minutes to get her airborne, just to get enough, because of the air so thin up there. You know, the way the wing flies, you have to get enough air speed going over it for it to lift you off.
30 minutes, you say that?
No, 30 meters.
Oh.
But 30 meters at 8,000 meters is hard. Even with oxygen. So I ran, and eventually, as it got steep enough, luckily she started flying, and off we went.
How did you stay warm enough? Because while you exercise and you get a little body heat, but once you start flying, you just literally freeze.
Yeah, these suits are good. I mean, I was very warm, and luckily it was actually a warm day. I actually ended up So I had big gloves on, and I actually ended up taking them off because I wanted to fiddle with my phone, because that was, I just wanted to see how far it was to Lukla, not to Lukla, to where I had to land. And it was actually quite warm, so I just kept my very thin gloves on, and it was probably about, you obviously acclimatized, but it was probably about -5, so it wasn't that cold. So we sort of did rough calculation, for every 1,000 meters, you probably got to run 5 kilometers faster.
What square meter was your wing here?
It was 20 squares.
Is that a fairly standard sort of wing?
No, it's a mountain glider, so it's a bit smaller than the normal glider. My normal paraglider is about 23 squares. So just for lightness, we went a little bit smaller, it's not so heavy to carry. But also, I didn't fly with a reserve, so normally in paragliding you have a round reserve that you fly with, and that weighs about another kilo, so I threw that out and I went for a glider, found a manufacturer that would give me one of their gliders, and it ticked all the boxes, and it was nice. It was a safe glider, because you get different categories of safety in paragliding. I opted not to take a reserve for that. But also reserve at that altitude, you have to take a bigger reserve, because for every 1,000 meters you fall 5 meters a second faster as well.
Mm.
So if you end up having an accident or something goes wrong, you have structural failure, and you landing down at 6,000 meters at Camp 2 there below me, you're going to be, these things are tested at sea level, and you land sea level, they sink at about 5 meters a second. So you can imagine you'd be landing at another 11 meters a second. You're definitely going to break something.
So Peter, soaring up to summit was not possible, and I'm sure you thought about that.
I was so tired after my run, I was so exhausted. In the video, although you won't hear that now, but I was panting the whole way down. The flight took me 20 minutes, so it was very quick. I mean, I could have flown to Nancy Bazaar, actually, but all my kit was back at base camp. So I elected not to do that and just land at Gorakshep and then walk back up again. But it was very beautiful. This is flying over. That's camp 2 down there, where I was sick for 4 days. You ask if I could fly to the top of Everest, and I think it will be done. Someone's going to go up there. I'd love to go and try it again, but with a more high-performance glider. Because a Frenchman recently, a year and a half ago, flew to the top of Broad Peak. That's one of the 8,000-meter peaks, and he was the first person to ever do that. And he caught thermals to roughly 7,800 meters, and then ridge soared up Broad Peak to the top. So he was the first person to ever fly in a paraglider over 8,000 meters. On that flight path, you can see the clouds already up, covering, as I was saying, with the weather coming in. So I took off. At 12 o'clock. The flight, I had a ground speed. My maximum ground speed was 90 km an hour, and that's with the wind. But I had an average ground speed into wind, and the wind was blowing at 40 km an hour. Still had a ground speed of about 40, 50 km an hour. So that's base camp. You can see all the little yellow tents spread out all the way. And you're just flying through. I mean, it's totally surreal to me. It's just, beautiful peaks. They've all got history, and the history that goes with this whole area is, from a mountaineering point of view, it's just amazing.
What speed are you doing?
At this point, I'm flying into the wind. So the wind will come up the valley. So I've probably got a 50, 60 kilometer ground speed. Your glider has got a ground speed or an airspeed of 35 km an hour. In still air, yeah. And you can speed it up. You've got speed bars, so you can change the angle of attack and maybe get it up to 45.
And what's your stall speed in still air?
Stall speed's around about 21, 22.
At the altitude and your weight?
Obviously it'll increase. I never worked out, but I guess you'll probably stall a lot sooner. So you should probably stall at about, 28, 30. So when you're taking off, I could feel it. I couldn't pull my brakes or flats, if you want to call them that, too much, because you can feel that the glider's not going to will stall quite quickly. So I didn't lose much height. When I was over base camp, I'd only lost like a couple hundred meters. I think about 150 meters. And then as I turned and I started going into wind.
Do you get scared when you go high?
No, I was quite relieved when I got into air. Then it was all, it just comes back to you. It's just natural, and been flying for 35 years. I felt very comfortable once I was off the ground. the only thing was just taking off with all of this stuff on you, trying to run. It's just, you know, you're dressed up like a Michelin man, and you suddenly have to go and run 30 meters. That was probably the hardest part, was to get
It
off the
must have
mountain.
felt wonderful flying instead of trekking, Pierre.
Oh yeah, that was beautiful. Unbelievable. Yeah.
Next time inflate with height.
Didn't get me.
So here's Gorakshep below me, and that's that grass, the last grass that I'd spotted. Now, when I turned and went with the wind, that's where I saw that I had a ground speed of about 90 k's an hour. So I thought, okay, the wind's where I am is blowing hard. So we got a good sort of 50 k an hour wind.
Was that from a GPS? Or?
From my phone. Now, you got those various instruments that you use. So I just had my phone tied onto my leg, and was just watching that.
I think that Pierre will be here for a while with questions. And Neil has asked me to just mention a thank you to Pierre. That was actually bloody amazing. Absolutely. What we can do to bring a guy like this along here? Yeah, and
Carl, can we just see the size of his guns, please? I'm sure they're
bigger than yours.
I'm sure they are enormous.
Okay. Pierre, you know, when you started off here, well, I was at that awards Aero Club thing, and I thought, this is a kind of Mugu award, but now I can understand it, that this was an exceptional feat. And I'm sure that what you produced here, this is sort of Todd AO stuff. It is really, really fantastic visual material. You know, when you started talking and you said that you grew up in the Berg at Champagne Castle in 1970. In 1963, I was working just down the road, flying a tri-pace around those mountains from Drakensberg Gardens. And, you know, they go up to max is 11,400 feet, but most of it's at about 10,000 feet. And sure, those are enormous mountains. And I could see your love for the mountains and how it can develop if you live in that area. But one of the things, there are quite a few things that I was thinking about. My small boy flies an A380 Airbus, and they go past Everest. He's taken a couple of pictures of it from up there, and their safety height is 31,000 feet. But if they have some reason to descend, like an engine out or depressurization, they can go down to 31,000 feet. And the airway is 400 miles wide. So it's a massive hazard for them. And they've got wheels when they land. Now, for my part, or one of the wise guys in my life said to me, you know, anything that you're going to land and you've got to use your legs as a landing is not a good idea. But as you can see, I'm a spent athlete. But Pierre, thank you for giving us your time. It was absolutely phenomenal. And you can see the reaction that you've had from the people here of what a wonderful presentation you've given us. Thank you so much. And for that, I'm prepared to give you a free ride first class. No, I wish I could. Well, anyway, thanks so much, Pierre. And I hope you're going to accept invitations to talk to other organisations that I'm involved in. Thanks indeed, Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Thanks, Pierre. That was fantastic. Thank you for coming, Pierre.